She's so easy to control, just guilt her, and she'll do anything. That was the text I read. Sent at 11:42 p.m. by my mother. And they didn't know. I was still logged into the family group chat. Not one person in that thread realized it. Not my sister Heather, who added a laughing emoji. Not my older brother Matt, who replied, classic. Not even my dad, who followed it up with, she's always been the weak link. Just play the sympathy card. I sat there in the dark of my tiny apartment, that group chat still open on my laptop. My fingers frozen over the keyboard. No one had noticed I was online. Not yet. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. They just kept typing one after another like it was normal. Like betraying someone who'd sacrificed everything for them was just Sunday night fun. I didn't type a word. I just watched. I let them speak freely. And that's when my entire world shifted. Not slowly, violently. Like something had snapped inside me. The kind of break you don't come back from. The kind of break that makes a woman finally decide. I'm done being your puppet. It had started earlier that day. Sunday dinner. A tradition. Family dinner is non-negotiable, my mom would say. So I showed up like always. With a pie. With a smile. With bruises hidden so no one would see how burnout I was from working 2 shifts and still paying for Heather's tuition, just until she got settled. I brought the wine my dad liked. I helped wash the dishes. I let them mock me for not being married yet. For still renting. For being so sensitive. Heather had forgotten to say thank you again. Matt had made another passive-aggressive comment about how it's crazy Jenna's still single when she's such a caretaker. It was always like this. They'd guilt me into helping them move their things, bail them out of loans, take blame I didn't deserve, and I'd say yes every time. Why? Because I thought that's what family meant. Because I was stupid enough to believe love was measured in how much pain you could tolerate for someone else. Because every time I tried to stand up for myself, Mom would say it. Don't make this about you. We're a family. But reading that chat, watching them confirm it out loud, that I was just a pawn they pushed around with a few fake tears, that broke something sacred inside me. I closed my laptop, stared at my own reflection in the microwave door, and said out loud, tomorrow, everything changes. I didn't sleep that night. My mind replayed every manipulated moment of the last 10 years. The time I used my savings to help Heather get out of her toxic relationship and paid her rent, only to find out she'd gone on vacation with her boyfriend 2 weeks later. The time Matt showed up crying because he'd lost his job and I gave him my car so he could keep job hunting while I walked 2 miles to work every day. The time my mom called me in tears because her credit card was maxed out. I took out a loan. And then saw her with a new Louis Vuitton bag 2 days later. I remembered how they'd all laugh behind my back. How they always left me out of the real conversations. The inside jokes. The decisions. I wasn't family to them. I was useful. A function. A tool. A servant who didn't ask questions. Until now. The next morning, I didn't text anyone. I didn't tell them I knew. I didn't ask for an apology. I didn't cry. Instead, I went to work like normal, the nonprofit I'd been with for 7 years. And after my afternoon board meeting, I did something I'd never done before. I walked into the CEO's office and shut the door. Jenna? Nora looked up, surprised. She was in her 60s, sharp, and always impeccably dressed. Everything all right? No, I said calmly. But I think it's about to be. I reached into my bag, pulled out a folder, and laid down the grant proposal I'd been secretly working on for 6 months. The one everyone told me was too ambitious. But I knew what it could do. I'd been building it in silence, planning it when no one else believed in me. Nora flipped through it. Her brow lifted higher and higher with every page. You did all this alone? I nodded. I just didn't want anyone else ruining it. When she finished reading, she looked up at me.
Different this time.
Like she was finally seeing me.
The real me.
How soon can you start? She asked. I smiled. By Wednesday, I had my own office. By Friday, my own team. By the end of the month, I was the new director of programs, the youngest one they'd ever hired. My salary tripled overnight. And the first thing I did, I changed my number. Mom called Heather. Why isn't Jenna answering? Heather tried Matt. She's not in the chat anymore. Did she block us? Matt emailed me from his work account. Hey, just checking in. Can you still send me that $800 this month? I didn't reply. I had other plans. I moved into a sleek loft in the city. I hired a financial advisor. I invested. I finally went to therapy. And for the first time in my life, I put up a boundary so high, so solid. No guilt could ever scale it again. But that wasn't the end. That was just the beginning. Because a few weeks later, they came crawling back. And what I did next left them speechless. It started with an email. Subject line, urgent help needed. Please read. Sender, Heather Miller. I stared at it for 5 minutes before opening it. Hey Jenna, I know things have been weird, but I really need you. I messed up. It's my car. I got in a minor accident and insurance won't cover it. They're saying I owe over $6,000 and I don't know what to do. Please, can you help me one last time? I'll pay you back. I swear. Love you. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't have the money, but because this wasn't new. It was a pattern, her getting scared, helpless, and always knowing I'd swoop in. Because I always had. This time,
No.
2 days later, Matt showed up. At my office. Security buzzed me, sounding confused. There's a Matthew Carlson here. Says he's your brother. I paused. Send him up. He looked rough. Expensive jacket, but the bags under his eyes told me he wasn't sleeping well. Jenna, he said, smiling like we hadn't spoken in a month. You look wow. You look different. I feel different, I replied flatly. He laughed awkwardly. Hey, I was hoping we could talk. Just, catch up. I let him sit down. Let him stumble through small talk. Let him finally ask what he really came for. So, my business, it's been slow. Really slow. And the bank, they froze the account. He paused, waiting for me to react. I didn't. He leaned forward. I know things have been tense. But your family, you've always helped before. And I really, really need you this time. There it was. That familiar tug, the appeal to guilt. The weapon they'd always used. But this time, it didn't land. Not even close. I looked him in the eyes and said, Matt, you told Mom I was easy to control. Remember? His face froze. I let that silence hang. He looked like he'd been slapped. You didn't know I was still in the chat, I added. But I saw everything. Every word. He stammered. Jenna, that was just venting. You know how family talks when they're done pretending, I said, standing. I'll have security walk you out. That night, I sat by my window with a glass of wine. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel bitter. I felt clean. Like for the first time, I wasn't drowning in the need to be enough for people who didn't care. But it wasn't over. Because 2 days later, Mom showed up at my door. She was crying before I even opened it. My baby, she said, reaching out to hug me. I didn't move. She stood frozen in the doorway. Please don't shut me out. I didn't shut you out, I said. You handed me the scissors. I just finally used them. Her eyes filled up again, but I didn't budge. I know we've made mistakes, she whispered. You didn't make a mistake, I said sharply. You made a group chat where I was the joke. The fool. The weak one. I was stressed. You were cruel. And for the first time, she looked small. Not powerful. Not commanding. Just exposed. I came because, her voice broke, we're losing the house. I blinked. The mortgage was under your name, remember? She said softly. The payments you used to handle them. And now. Of course it was about money.
It always had been.
And yet, I didn't slam the door. I didn't yell. I simply said, you all taught me one thing very clearly. I was only valuable when I was useful. So now that I'm not, this is what it feels like. I stepped back, slowly closing the door. And I didn't look back. But the story doesn't end here. Because by the time the next morning rolled around, everything shifted. Not just in my life, but in theirs. Because the power they'd used to manipulate me, it didn't just vanish. It flipped. And what happened that day would leave my mother stunned, and my whole family begging for mercy. I woke up the next morning to 17 missed calls. 8 from Mom, 3 from Heather, 6 from a number I didn't recognize, and 1 voicemail that made my stomach twist, not from fear, but satisfaction. Jenna, this is Carla Simmons from Glendale Property Services. We're following up on the lien release and full ownership transfer for the property at 119 Carter Hill. The final paperwork's been notarized under your LLC. Please confirm the handover date so we can notify the current tenants. I smiled. You see, while they were busy mocking me in their secret group chat, I'd been working quietly behind the scenes. Legally, strategically, with precision. Because what they didn't know, that house, the family home they were still living in, had been refinanced years ago under my name. For credit reasons, Mom said. You have the cleanest history, Jenna. Just sign. We'll handle the payments.
I handled them, all right.
For 6 years straight. Until I stopped. Until they made it clear I was just their guilt-ridden puppet.
And now?
The house was mine. I called Carla back. Schedule the inspection. I want them out in 30 days. She didn't even flinch. Copy that. Less than an hour later, Mom called again. I let it ring. Then came the group message from Heather. Are you seriously evicting your own family? Followed by Matt. You've lost your damn mind.
No.
For the first time, I'd found it. That evening, I drove to Carter Hill.
Not to talk.
Not to argue. To walk into my house. When I stepped out of my car, Mom came rushing down the porch. You can't do this, she snapped, her face flushed. This isn't you. No, I said calmly. This is me, without guilt. She tried to block the door. We built our life here. You wouldn't even have that name on the deed without us. I raised an eyebrow. And you wouldn't have a roof if I hadn't paid for 6 years of missed payments. Heather stepped out behind her, arms crossed. You're just doing this for revenge. No, I replied. I'm doing this for freedom. Then I looked both of them in the eye and added, I suggest you start packing. Later that week, a formal notice was taped to the front door. 30 days. No negotiation. No soft exit. Matt tried calling again, this time pretending he wanted to make things right. I miss my sister, he said. I didn't respond. Because I realized they didn't miss me. They missed what I gave them. Money.
Time.
Emotional labor. Obedience. I wasn't their daughter. Or sister. I was a resource. That weekend, I hosted my first team dinner. My new coworkers.
People who respected me. Saw me.
Listened when I spoke. As we laughed and passed plates around the candlelit rooftop, I realized something. This is family. Not blood. Not guilt. But people who show up for you without expecting to drain you dry. And yet, as much as I'd changed, the story wasn't over. Because my mother wasn't done. And what she did next would make this whole thing a war. The voicemail from my mother was shorter this time. You've gone too far. We're your family. This is cruel. You'll regret this. She sounded calm. Not sad, not afraid.
Calm.
And that terrified me more than any scream. Because I knew that tone. It meant she was planning something. By Friday morning, it was already circulating. A public Facebook post. From her account.
Tagged. Pinned.
Blazing with carefully chosen words. Sometimes the people you raise turn out to be unrecognizable. We gave her everything. And she's throwing us on the street like garbage. Some daughters are just born without souls. And just like that, she flipped the script. Hundreds of comments poured in. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years posted, praying for you. Aunt Denise wrote, unbelievable behavior from Jenna. Some even messaged me directly. Is it true? Your mom looks devastated. Why can't you just forgive and move on? And here it was, the real guilt trap. Public shame. Social pity. Narrative manipulation. They weren't just trying to guilt me privately anymore. They were trying to turn the world against me. But they didn't expect what came next. Because while they were busy playing victim online, I was sitting across the table from Nora, my CEO, signing the final documents for something I'd been working on in silence. A women's housing project for survivors of financial abuse. 6 renovated units, all under my new nonprofit's umbrella. Funded in part by my bonuses and by a quiet investor I met during a fundraising gala last month, a woman who looked me in the eye and said, "I know what it's like to be used until there's nothing left." We shook hands, and she handed me the key. That same afternoon, I posted a photo. Me, in front of the first completed unit. Captioned simply, "Freedom is not cruelty. It's healing." And while the comments on Mom's post swelled with fake prayers and pity, mine filled with stories. Women I'd never met. Messages like, "I needed to see this." They made me feel crazy too. Thank you for choosing yourself. But the moment that changed everything, it wasn't online. It was in person. 2 weeks later. Carter Hill. I pulled up just before sunset. The porch was empty now. Boxes stacked beside the door. A lone lamp flickering through the blinds. Heather stepped outside first. She didn't look angry anymore. Just empty. "She's inside," she said quietly. "Mom?" Heather nodded. "She's not leaving." I walked past her and opened the door. There she was. My mother. Sitting on the floor. No makeup. No performance. Just a woman who'd lost the one thing she never thought she would control. "You happy now?" she whispered. "No," I said honestly. "I'm healing, but I'm not happy." She looked up slowly. "I was scared." "Of what?" "Of being forgotten," she said. "Of being powerless. Of you not needing me." And there it was. The core of it all. Not hate. Not malice. But fear. Fear that I'd grow strong. That I'd walk away. That I'd stop carrying the burden she built her life on. I sat down across from her. "I never wanted to be your enemy," I said softly. "I just didn't want to be your hostage." She didn't reply. We sat there in silence. Not as mother and daughter, but as 2 women. Both exhausted. Both broken. But only one of us choosing to rebuild. The house was finally empty. On a quiet Wednesday morning, the movers came. No drama. No goodbyes. Just quiet footsteps, heavy boxes, and the hum of finality in the air. By noon, the front door of 119 Carter Hill closed for the last time. And I stood at the edge of the driveway, holding the keys. The same driveway where my father once told me I'd never make it out there alone. Where Heather once screamed that I was a failure for not getting married. Where my mother had whispered, "You'll always need us." I didn't. Not anymore. 3 days later, I sold the house. The money? I donated half to the housing fund I'd started. The other half went into a savings account with a name I hadn't spoken out loud in years. Jenna's emergency exit. A backup plan. For me. Because I finally understood something. I wasn't selfish for saving myself. I was smart. A month passed. Then 2. No more calls. No more group chats. Just silence. Until one day, a letter showed up. Handwritten. No return address. But I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was from Mom. "Jenna, I've read your articles. Watched the news piece about your program. You looked happy. Strong. I never knew how much I relied on your pain to keep our family together." That's a sentence I hate writing, but it's true. You don't owe us anything. I hope you find peace in your new life. And maybe one day, if you want, you'll let me meet the woman you've become. I folded the letter. Didn't cry. Didn't smile either. I felt still. Because it wasn't about her anymore. That weekend, I stood in front of a group of women at a community center. Survivors. Fighters. Women who'd been emotionally stripped down by the people they once trusted most. And I told them the truth. I thought saying no would make me unlovable. Turns out, it just made me free. A few of them nodded. One woman cried quietly. Another smiled. Really smiled. like someone had finally spoken the words she hadn't known she needed to hear. After the session, one of them approached me. "You said your mom used guilt to control you?" she asked. I nodded. She exhaled, shaky. "Mine too. I thought I was the only one."
"You're not," I said.
And neither was I. That night, I stood in my new apartment. Warm light, soft jazz playing from a corner speaker, a glass of wine in my hand. And I opened a blank journal. First page. First words. "You're not hard to love. You are just surrounded by people who made love a transaction." Then I turned the page and wrote, "I'm not coming back. Not to the guilt. Not to the silence. Not to the small version of myself they built and called love." I wasn't broken anymore. I was rebuilding. And this time, every brick was mine.